All right, intro to algebra students. So we got lesson 4.4. This is the last one that we're going to wrap up here today. And I talked about this in the last one we were doing, adding and subtracting fractions, how we're going to go about simplifying fractions. So that's what we're going to focus on now, is how to go about simplifying fractions. If you already know, great. Maybe use this video for a little bit of a review to kind of help you out. If you don't need to watch it because you already know, then that's fine. I'm going to give you guys some tips on here to how to go about this the simplest way that I feel is possible, because any way we can uncomplicate fractions, I'm all about trying to do that and make it as simple as we can. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about simplifying fractions. First, let's review equivalent fractions, because we did this the other day. Okay, so equivalent fractions are fractions that are the same, they just have different numbers. Okay, so if we're taking a look at these things, here's our example. 1/2 is equal to 4/8. These two fractions have the same exact value, but they're just different numbers. And when we looked at it the other day, we also could tell that 1/2 is equal to 4/8 because both our numerator and denominator got multiplied by the same number. Okay, so that's how we can tell if we have equivalent fractions. So let's talk about how we go about simplifying fractions, okay? What this means, if you're going to simplify fractions, it means that you're going to find an equivalent fraction that uses the smallest numbers possible. Okay, so basically we're going to find equivalent fractions. If we're simplifying, we're just going to find equivalent fractions, but we're going to be using the smallest numbers possible to show that equivalent fractions. Okay, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. So let's take a look at this first one. So here's our example. They want us to simplify 8/32. Okay, so we want to find a fraction that is equal to 8/32, and we're going to do that using the lowest numbers possible that would be equal to this same fraction. Okay, and how we find that, how we find which numbers would be the smallest possible that's going to be the same as 8/32, is we want to find numbers that will divide. Let's start all over on that. So we want to find numbers that are going to divide into both the numerator and denominator evenly. Okay, so we're trying to find numbers that are going to divide into both of these evenly. Okay, and if I take a look at these, we can try any numbers we want. The first number that comes to mind, I know both of these numbers are even, so I know I can divide both of these numbers by 2. Okay, so we want to divide both our numerator and our denominator by the same number and see what we end up getting from that. All right, so just like up here, like we multiplied, now we're just basically going backwards. Since division is the opposite of multiplying, we're just going to be dividing to see what we get. Okay, so if I divide 8 by 2, I'm going to end up with 4. And if I divide 32 by 2, I'm going to end up with 16. Okay, so what I have here is I have 4/16. I have a fraction that is equivalent to 8/32. It's just using different numbers. Okay, but I might not be quite done yet, because I want to simplify. Okay, meaning I want to find the smallest numbers I could use that would still be a fraction equal to 8/32. Okay, so 4/16, these are smaller numbers than 8/32, but there are actually smaller numbers that we could use to show this same fraction that would be equivalent. So you take a look at your answer you got and see if you can divide that again. Okay, so if I take a look at 4 and 16, these are both even. I know that I can divide both of them by 2 again. All right, so sometimes we go through this process more than one time. Okay, so if I take both of these and I divide them by 2, I'm going to end up with 2 over top of 8. Okay, so now check it out. We got 2 over 8, which is also equal to 8 over 32. It's an equivalent fraction. All right, they're the same thing. We're still trying to simplify, so we want to see if we could divide both of these numbers again. Okay, so if I take a look at this, they are still can be divided. Both of these numbers are still even, so they can be divided by 2 still. Okay, so if I do that again, I get 1 over 4. All right, now take a look at how much smaller these numbers have gotten. We started with 8 over 32, then we got 4 over 16, 2 over 8. Now we're down to 1 over 4. All right, and we can check if we have simplified all the way, like if this is the simplest fraction we can make that is equal to 8 over 32, is if we are not able to divide these two numbers anymore. All right, if there's nothing else I can divide these two numbers by, and there isn't, okay, there's no other number I can divide both of these by to get it to change into another fraction. All right, so these are the lowest numbers we have, the smallest numbers we found that make a fraction that is equivalent, that is equal to 8 over 32. So that means it is simplified all the way. This would be our simplified answer. All right, we started with 8 over 32, and we ended up with 1 over 4 because we can't divide it anymore. So this is our simplest fraction of 8 over 32. Okay, we'll take a look at a few more examples and we'll make some sense out of it. All right, so let's take a look at a few more, and we're going to go through the same process of dividing until we can't divide anymore. All right, so let's check out what else we have here. Okay, so I got a few more examples here. So a trick to go about this, so take a look at each of these. So we are going to be dividing each of these fractions until we can't divide them by anything anymore. Okay, so that's what we're up to. And a trick that you can use to really help you out on this is to use a calculator. Okay, it'll make your life go a whole lot easier. All right, use a calculator and just try dividing by different numbers until you find one that's going to work. All right, so you want to find one that works. Okay, so if I'm looking at this fraction here, I got 25 and 40. So I want to ask myself, what can I divide both of these numbers by? All right, so you just start trying some different numbers. And the best ones to try any number from 2 to 15. Okay, that's what I do. So start with 2. All right, so start here. And then just try dividing by different numbers until you can find some numbers that are going to work. Okay, so let's take a look at 25 over 40 and let's start simplifying it. So what can I divide 25 and 40 by? All right, so first I ask myself, can I divide them by 2? Okay, if I try it, no, it's not going to work because it needs to come out evenly. All right, 40 would work if I divide by 2, but not 25. Okay, so then you move up. You try some other numbers. Try 3. All right, can you divide both of these by 3 and have it come out evenly? No, you can't. All right, so try some other numbers. How about 4? Okay, can I divide both of these by 4 evenly? This one I can down here. If you try that in your calculator, it'll work. This one, no, you can't. All right, so you move on up. So next number we got is 5. Can I divide both of these numbers by 5? And yes, you can, absolutely. So we found one that is going to work, 5. So if I divide both my numerator and denominator by 5, okay, I'm going to end up with 5 over top of 8. All right, so now I have this fraction here, and I want to see if I can divide these numbers again by anything. Okay, so if I take a look, it's not going to work for 2. I can't divide them by 2. I can't divide them by 3. Can't divide them by 4. Can't divide them by 5. There's no other numbers that are going to work for this. All right, you can try all the numbers you want from 2 to 15. It's not going to work. So this ends up being your final answer. That would be your simplified fraction of 25 over 40. All right, their equivalent fraction. It's just written using the smallest numbers possible that is still the same as 25 over 40. Okay, let's take a look at a few others. Here we got 27 over top of 81. We want to simplify this. Start trying some numbers and see if it's going to work. Start with 2. 2's not going to work. Check 3. Okay, if you put that in the calculator, yeah, 3 is going to work with both of them. Okay, so start with 3 and see what you end up getting. All right, so if I divide 27 by 3 and 81 by 3, I'm going to get a brand new fraction over here. Okay, so I'm going to get 9 over top of, and if you take 81, divide that by 3, you're going to get 27. Okay, now that you got that, check to see if you can divide those numbers again. Okay, so 9 and 27, I can't divide them by 2, but I can divide them both by 3. All right, so I'm going to divide by 3. I'm going to do that again because I'm trying to get these numbers down until I can't divide them anymore. All right, so 9 and 3 is going to get me 3, and 27 divided by 3 is going to get me 9. Okay, so now I have that. All right, and now you want to check to see if there's something you can divide both of these numbers by, and I already know I can divide them by 3. So there's a lot of dividing by 3 for this one. So let's see if this will do it if we do that one more time. Okay, divide both of those by 3. You're going to end up with 1 over top of 3. And look at that. 1 over 3, there's nothing else we can divide both of these numbers by. That's the smallest we can go. That's the smallest fraction we can make that is equivalent to this one here. So we've simplified that all the way. All right, and that would be our final answer. Check it. You can't divide it anymore, so you're done. All right. Let's take a look at these numbers here. 16 over 36. Let's start simplifying this. So start with 2 and see if that's going to work. Is 2 going to work? It absolutely is. All right, so divide both of them by 2. All right, I always just start whatever is the lowest number possible I can divide them by, just to get the process going. Okay, so if I divide each of these by 2, I'm going to get 8 over top of 36 divided by 2 is going to give us 18. Okay, so there's my, after I divided by 2, that's what I ended up with. Looking at these numbers, check if you can divide them again. Okay, you can divide them again. They're going to divide by 2 again also. So I'm going to divide each of these by 2. And I'm going to simplify again. I'm going to go through the same process. So that's going to get me 4 over top of 9. All right, and then I want to check to see if I could simplify this again. Is there anything I can divide both 4 and 9 by? And there is nothing. If I go through and I keep checking all the different numbers possible from 2 to 15, it's not going to work. All right, so there is your simplified fraction of 16 over 36. All right, it simplifies all the way down to 4 over 9. There's nothing else we can divide those by again. So that is all. All right, let's do this last example here. We're going to divide these. Start with 2. That's going to work. Okay, so I can go with that. And you could also go, you could pick a number higher than 2. See if you can find a number higher than 2 that would work. But I always just start with 2 just to make it easier and see what it comes out to. All right, if you want to explore some higher numbers, go for it. Okay, so if we go with 2, all right, divide each of these by 2. That's going to get us 14 over top of 22. Okay, that's what we ended up with. Now check those numbers again. Both of these numbers I know are even, so I know they're going to get divided by 2 again. All right, if I do that, I'm going to get 7 over top of 11. All right, and if I take a look at those numbers, there is nothing I can divide both 7 and 11 by evenly. All right, in fact, both of these are actually prime numbers. All right, if you remember prime numbers, that means nothing goes into them except for the number 1 and this number, the number itself. All right, so there is my simplified fraction of 28 over 44. All right, it's an equivalent fraction and it can't be divided anymore. Okay, so there's the process that I found is the easiest to go about simplifying fractions. You can definitely go through it a different way if you got a different method that works. This is just the one that I use that I found seems to be the simplest. All right, I'm going to have you guys try a few, see how you do, and then we'll take a look at your answers here in just a couple minutes. All right, so try that, see what you end up with. This one's kind of tricky. Okay, you're going to have to try a few different numbers until you find one that's going to work for that. All right, so like I said, try numbers 2 through 15 and see what you can get to divide that fraction by. All right, hit pause, work these on your own, and then hit play here once you're done. All right, let's take a look and see what you guys came up with. So here's our first one, 8 over top of 24. You might have chosen a different number to divide that by. I mean, you could actually divide both of them by 4, but I just started, since they're even, I went with 2. So if I start with that, I ended up with 4 over 12. Then I can divide by 2 again. I got 2 over 16. I can still divide by, or 2 over 6, excuse me. I can still divide by 2, so I ended up with 1/3 as a final answer, and that is simplified all the way. You can't divide those by anything anymore. All right, take a look at this one. This one's just one step. Both of them got divided by 5. We ended up with 6 over 17. All right, and our challenging one here, the only number that works to divide both of those by, well, at least the lowest number anyway, is 7. Okay, so you had to go all the way up until 7 until you figured out a number that would work. So you ended up with 3 over 13 for that one. All right, so check your answers, make sure that worked. Make any changes that you need to. And for the last part here, let's talk about how do we know if a number is already in its lowest terms, if a fraction is already in its lowest terms? Okay, that means it's already simplified the most that it can. Okay, so what you do is you ask yourself a question: is there any number that we can divide the fraction by? Okay, just like we were doing on the previous screens, is there anything we can divide that number by? And if there isn't, then it is in its lowest terms. Okay, so take a look at these two fractions we're going to be working with. So we want to check to see, are these fractions in lowest, simplest terms? Okay, it means the same thing. Lowest terms, simplest terms is the same. And if not, we are going to simplify them just like we were doing. Okay, so take a look at 4 over 9. If you look at both of these numbers, you could try some different numbers to divide by and see if it works, and you end up with nothing. Okay, there's nothing you can divide both 4 and 9 by to get them to come out evenly. So this is already in its lowest, simplest form. So we would say, yes, it is already simplified. There's nothing else we can simplify this down to. It is simplified the most it is. Okay, so take a look at this next one. Is this one in its simplest form? No, it is not, because we can divide both of these numbers by something, and we can divide them by 2. So if we do that, all right, we're going to end up with 6 over top of 7. Now it's in its simplest form, because we can't divide 6 and 7 by anything anymore. There's nothing else that would work to divide those. Okay, so as long as you can divide both your numerator and denominator by some type of number, both the same type of number, then it's not in lowest terms. Okay, so try a couple on your own, see if you can identify if you have some numbers in lowest terms or not, and then we'll take a look at your answer and see what you came up with. All right, let's see what you guys got for these ones, if you could identify which is in lowest terms and which one isn't. Okay, this top one up here is not in lowest terms. We could divide both of these numbers by 5, so we end up with 3/7, and that would be the lowest term. All right, this one here is already in lowest terms. There's nothing we can divide both 11 and 24 by, so it is in its lowest terms already. All right, I hope those two problems worked out for you. Make any fixes if you need to fix those. And let's talk about what it is that you have to do today. So we just got done with lesson 4.4. So I'm going to have you do the checkup, and I'm only going to have you do these problems here. All right, 5 through 10. That's all you got to do. And check on Google Classroom. I'm going to explain how to get that turned in. I'll leave some directions for you. And then this quiz in Apex, you guys can get that done. No problem. And then that's your assignments for the rest of the day here. Okay, so try those. Hopefully those work out for you. If you guys got questions, feel free to reach out to me and ask. All right, thanks for watching.